Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the C Squared Podcast recap. We have Game 12 of the World Championship match between Ding Liren from China and Jan Nepomniachtchi from Russia. As we enter Game 12, it is 6-5 in favor of the Russian player Jan Nepomniachtchi, and we have simply fireworks in Game 12. Fabiano, you've been doing a lot of commentary. You've been watching this match unfold. What do you have for us?
Yeah, well, I'll just preface this by saying that it was a tough day. It was a tough day for both of these guys, and also covering the game. It was quite a stressful game, without saying anything about the results, just that this is a game which had a lot of ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
And Ding had the white pieces, Jan with black, so as you mentioned, Ding is a point behind in the match at this point, and he needs to win. Well, he doesn't need to win, but it's very important to try to climb back sooner rather than later, right? So he probably thought this was a very important game to try to win.
Absolutely.
He started d4.
Let's get straight into the analysis. Yes, d4.
Knight to f6.
Mm-hmm.
Knight to f3. So this is knight to f3 is showing I don't want a Nimzo. For example, c4, e6, knight c3, Nimzo, right? We saw in that 8th game. Instead, he decided to play knight to f3. And after d5, this was the introduction to the London in an earlier game in the match, right? Ding played the London, bishop to f4.
Mm-hmm.
White usually starts knight f3 to get to London because if second move bishop to f4, very decent system is g6.
Yes.
And so white usually starts with knight f3, waits for either e6 or d5, and then goes for bishop f4 to avoid that g6 system. But this time Ding had other plans. After knight f3, d5, he decided to play e3, the Cole system.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how it's pronounced.
Yes.
Right? Cole?
Yes.
Not Cole?
I think it's Cole. Cole
Okay. That's what I was
Zukertort
thinking.
or something like that. Cole Zukertort system. Something along those lines.
Yeah. E3, it's
Generally considered
a
to be
very-
quite a peaceful system and quite easy
Yeah.
to equalize from the black perspective.
Well, this line is as old as time. It's, one of those lines that goes back to the early days of chess theory, opening theory, and then was abandoned at some point because it was considered a little bit, not too direct. And then at some point, more recently, I think that like Kramnik kind of revived it a bit. I remember this game, Kramnik Giri. That's why I'm kind of thinking that he revived it. But I'm sure there were also other players who were responsible for the revival of E3.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay, actually, E3, usually black plays C5.
Yes.
You can kind of strike in the center because D takes C5. It's not really a pawn sack. Usually there's like this common trick, E6, B4 to defend the pawn, A5, C3, and then take on B4, take, and B6. That's a very common trick, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know if I would call it a trick, but it's a common theme. Is if take on B6, then bishop B4 regains the pawn.
Yes. With check,
And-
bishop to d2, then you take on b6, defending the bishop on b4. This is more than fine for black. Maybe black is even better at this point.
Well, after B6, there is this theory connected to. I first saw this when it was played against me. Ferrugia and Armageddon played bishop B5 after B6 against me.
Mm-hmm.
Bishop D7, he took on D7, knight BD7, A4, BC5, B5, and this is known with reversed colors. This type of position known as the node boom variation. With reversed colors, you have this center versus past A and B pawns.
Yes. Absolutely.
And it's not like white is better here, but it's actually a great line if you want to fight because it's so double-edged, right? I mean,
I used to play
past,
this with
past
black.
pawns versus the center.
It was coming from the triangle. E6, d5, e6, c6, and then white goes with this e4 idea.
Well, this is the node boom.
The notebook,
What
yes.
would you call the triangle or the Marshall? I don't know. Like, there's probably a million names for it.
Yeah.
But specifically, this D takes C4 in D4, D5, C4, E6, knight C3, C6, knight F3.
Mm-hmm.
D takes C4 is I think referred to usually as the node boom.
The
It's
node boom,
not the
yes.
same as it's different because there the light square bishops don't get traded.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a different position.
Yeah.
But the structure is the same with reverse colors. So anyway, this was at some point a sort of theme. People were going for this. Ferrugia liked it. He played against me. He played against others. But Ding decided not to go for this sharp stuff. He decided to play e5, knight b to d2.
And he played it quite fast.
Yeah, for sure it was his prep. I mean, of course, e3, the main move is c5, so it's the main move that you prepare.
Yeah.
And I think this is how, Giri beat Kramnik. Because I remember that game. It was like e6 after knight d2. Wait, what was the game? No, it wasn't this one. So I might struggle to find this game, but there was a game, Kramnik Giri, from Norway, and Kramnik beat Giri very, very quickly, like within. I'm going to struggle to find the game, but he beat him basically in 17 moves with the white pieces in a classical game.
Yeah, that's okay.
So anyway, yeah, it's not super relevant at the moment, but. And I don't remember how they got it, but this was...
If you want to study this line, definitely check that game, and we will try to link it in the description. If not, you're on your own. You will have to find it on your own. All right.
Yeah, well, in that game, like, Black played an early c4, and I don't think it worked out very well for Black. So instead, Jan just took on d4, and this is... Actually, I played like this. I didn't even realize, but I played like this against Aronian. I'm just looking at the database here. In Zagreb. Oh, I remember this game. It was actually a classical game. Wow. Okay, yeah, so my memory has escaped me. So I took on d4 as well. E4, and we got the same structure that we got from London. The only difference is White's bishop is not on f4, it's on c1. So the nuances are a bit different, but the structure is exactly the same. The Carlsbad structure.
Yeah. Queen to c7.
Bishop to f5 here. After e4, bishop to f5, and for sure this is direction for Black, but Jan played queen to c7. And I'm not sure why Black doesn't start with knight c6. But I think it's probably connected to the move bishop to b5 here, is a possibility. So queen c7 is maybe a subtle way, because of bishop b5, now bishop to d7. So you're kind of avoiding bishop b5 stuff.
Yes.
And you want to play knight c6 next move. That's how I see this move. It's quite a subtle little idea.
You want to wait for White to develop the light square bishop to e2 or bishop to d3, and then go knight to c6, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're just preparing a move before you play knight c6. You're not committing your knight yet, so it can get pinned.
Which is a bit unfamiliar to a lot of people, because we generally are taught that you're not supposed to exchange the bishops for the knights without getting anything in return. We see in the exchange Ruy Lopez, White gets the doubled pawns for the drop of the two bishops. But in this case, after bishop to b5, White very often doesn't get that much, at least not as visually appealing. What does White get, in your opinion? For example, knight to c6 instead of queen c7, bishop to b5, a6, bishop takes c6, b takes c6. Why does White generally like to take the game towards this type of trenches?
Well, I'll first say that I'm not at all certain that in this position White is objectively better, but Black did spend a lot of time to provoke this bishop c6, bc6, and in an ideal world for White, if you can exploit that c5 square, which is a bit of a hole in Black's position, by imagine that someday you somehow trade bishops on a3, which is possible to imagine.
Yes.
And somehow you plant a knight on c5. That knight is a very, very annoying outpost, and it's clear at that point that Black's structure has been compromised in this manner. And maybe the light square bishop is not a super relevant factor in this position. That being said, I wouldn't be confident saying like White's objectively better here. Maybe it's a bit better for White, but nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
And after bishop b5, which I actually see was played in Carlsen, and Carlsen beat Wesley in this line. This was just a chess.com game, so probably some either 3-minute or 1-minute chess. But yeah, definitely
something to
Black
play
has
with.
some decent options here.
Yeah.
But that being said, Jan played queen c7 quickly. It's clear that he was familiar with the subtlety that maybe queen c7 is a more accurate way than knight c6 immediately.
Yeah. c3.
So Ding played c3 quickly. here there was a bizarre moment. Um, I have an explanation for it, but it's a very silly explanation. But I think it's the only one which makes sense. So Jan played the move bishop d7. Now, for all of our viewers, whether you are starting chess or whether you are an experienced chess player, whether you're a master, even a title player, I think it should be relatively clear that the bishop on d7 is not the ideal placement for it, just because, from a purely logical point of view, it's more active on, for example, f5. It's more active on g4. And there's no reason not to develop your knight to c6. At this point, bishop d5 is a bit less scary because black has sort of prepared against it with queen c7.
Mm-hmm.
And then wherever white's bishop moves, you will, let's say bishop d3 happens, then you play bishop g4. If bishop e2 happens, then you play bishop to f5, or even bishop g4. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have a lot of options. You want to keep your bishop more active. The bishop on d7 does not particularly contribute to the position.
Yes.
Why would Jan make such a move? Especially to make it within seconds in the opening, like he was prepared for it.
Well, he actually thought for 10 minutes.
I thought for 10 minutes?
I think so, yes. At least according to the clocks that we see on the screen, he did think for this move 10 minutes. By the way...
Yeah, maybe he did. Like, during commentary, sometimes moves a bit strangely, and it's easy to lose track of time.
Yeah.
Okay, in any case, why didn't he play knight c6? I think that I'm checking the engine, and the first line of the engine is knight c6,
mm-hmm.
queen c2, and now bishop d7 is the first line of a very powerful engine that I'm using. Just running at depth 51, and I guess sees into all the details of the position.
Yeah.
The reason why you play bishop d7 here is because specifically with white queen on c2, then after, for example, bishop to d3, black can play rook to c8 with the idea of knight to b4. And very, very specifically, the bishop on d7 is covering checks on b5 or a4 after black plays knight to b4, and black gains time with this little knight b4 threat, and the computer's main move is to play queen d1 back. And now black plays bishop g4. And we're going to see in the game a lot of very similar lines to this.
Yeah.
But obviously, in the game, because white didn't waste time on queen c2, queen d1, white gained an enormous amount of time, 2 tempi basically. And that's why Jan's bishop d7, it was probably just a mix-up. He just remembered that it was somewhere a move and couldn't remember where. And because the position is obviously not very concrete and could be easy to mix up things, it just got in his head. His preparation actually worked against him, which it sometimes does, right? You remember something, but you don't remember exactly where, and it ends up confusing you and ends up, in fact, leading you astray. Because if you just don't know the position at all, you play knight c6, right?
Yeah.
So
that's
it's actually better not to know the. I think that's the only reason to play bishop d7. Bishop d7 is a very, very dubious move. I mean, to start with, it allows knight to e5.
Yes.
Knight on e5 is an outpost, and after knight c6, white can simply reinforce the outpost with knight d to f3. And you'd even rather have the bishop on c8 because, like, it's just a target for the knight. And if you play, for example, after knight d3, e6, your bishop gets locked out of the pawn chain. It wants to be outside the pawn chain, f5, g4, not inside the pawn chain. Here, white can put a bishop on d3, bishop d6. You don't even take the bishop pair, which would also maybe be better for white. But you just play queen e2. You reinforce the e5 point. And black has a rather lousy position. It's pretty clear to the human eye. Engines even evaluate it more strongly than maybe a human would, like already quite seriously better for white, to the point of, you can easily imagine players losing this position with black.
Absolutely.
Because it's so strategically dangerous.
This would be
like the computer at
great
this point,
success for Ding and his opening situation.
To paraphrase Borat, it was a great success.
Great success. All right.
Like the computer's so desperate after queen e2 in this position that it wants to play knight e4. It gives away a pawn for absolutely nothing. Or at least it was suggesting it for a second.
Yeah.
Which, okay, it's just a bad position. We don't really have to say how bad it is. It's clear it's a bad position.
Yeah. All right. And
Bishop
Ding
d7
thought
is
for a
bad.
little bit. He played bishop to d3.
Knight c6 was played after bishop d3 is an inaccuracy because knight e5 was super, super dangerous.
Yeah.
So bishop d3, knight c6. Now Ding castled. I think it was much more dangerous to play h3. Basically because after h3, black's bishop no longer has any squares to go to, so it just stays on d7. e6, castle, bishop d6.
Yeah.
And now white plays rook to e1, and for example, short castle, I was discussing during the commentary the move queen to e2. And it's a very interesting and potentially dangerous position for black here. If white achieves knight e5, it's suddenly get very bad, and the computer says you should play knight to h5 to get some counterplay, which is also not solving all of your problems.
Yeah.
So I think h3 was a very interesting idea, but okay, Ding castled. It's not a bad move. I think h3 was maybe a bit more practical.
Yeah.
So now Jan played bishop g4. He corrects his mistake of bishop d7. Obviously, it can't be good to just lose a tempo for nothing. And in the press conference, Ding even said that he was looking at this position, a tempo down for white, and he was prepared to play his position a tempo down. So
with the pawn already on e6.
Yeah, or without him castled. Basically, Jan just gave him position with short castle as an extra move.
Not bad. Not bad. Sure, Ding was quite happy with his opening preparation.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I criticized bishop d3 is because knight e5 was even better than this.
Yeah.
But of course, this is an opening success for white. He got his prep, but a tempo up somehow.
Yeah.
Here he had to maybe Ding started to go a bit astray here. There was a very dangerous move, queen to a4, which Robert Hess was mentioning in the broadcast with idea e6, knight e5 is quite dangerous for black. And very clearly, right, knight e5 is the idea to pin the knight, get knight e5 in. Obviously, the position centers around getting that knight e5.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking knight e7 is a logical continuation, and we didn't have time to explore this position. But now that I'm seeing it with an engine, the engine says that white can play rook to e1. Black plays e6. And after e6, you play knight to e5. Not so obvious. And whichever knight black takes with,
let's
the
say
bishop on
knight
a4,
d takes.
Yeah, knight d takes is probably correct. D takes bishop to h5. And here there's a queen to h4, forcing bishop g6 take. You are forced to take with the f pawn. It's not always a bad outcome. But here, after knight to f3, bishop to e7, white can even play queen to f4, which stops black from short castling, and is actually quite annoying for black. Because if you castle long, then you probably end up getting attacked bishop e3, b4, and so on.
Yeah.
So queen to a4 was a dangerous option at white's disposal.
Yeah.
But Ding did not go for this. He played rook to e1, a very normal-looking move. There were some other interesting moves besides rook e1 or queen a4, like b4, for example, was very aggressive, but b4 doesn't come to mind as a typical idea.
Yeah.
Okay, rook to e1. e6. Knight to f1. It's clear that his idea of rook to e1 was to maneuver the knight to f1. Bishop d6. Here, bishop g5. And I think we can thank Ding for this move. It might not be objectively the best move, but it is certainly the reason why the game got so exciting. White had played knight to g3. Black could have castled. I think there's also we were kind of briefly considering in commentary, and I mentioned like h5 is potentially an option, which is interesting. But let's say black plays in a very circumspect manner, plays castle h3, take on f3, queen f3. White has the bishop here, but black gets e5 in time, and the position is complex. But objectively speaking, black gets a lot of counterplay with e5.
Yeah.
If black doesn't have e5, then maybe white's better. But e5, I think black is equalizing.
Bishop g5 is coming, knight h5 if you don't pay attention. So definitely white has some trumps, but e5 is just a very concrete way of solving your problems.
Just equalizing,
yeah.
I think.
He played bishop g5. All
that's why, yeah, Ding has to win this game. So he's probably not interested in those sorts of lines.
Yeah.
So he played bishop g5.
He doesn't have to win 100%, but if you leave yourself to the last moment to be in a winning, must-win situation with the white pieces in the last game, that's not a great position to be in. So he was definitely going to put as much pressure and seek a long game in this game 12.
Yeah, he played a very dangerous move.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, from this moment, for quite a long time, the players played very, very well and very combatively.
Yes.
So I like bishop g5. I also think that Jan played an excellent response. Basically, after bishop g5, black needs to decide what to do with the knight. If you play knight d7, then knight e3 comes. Take on f3, queen f3, and suddenly the threat is knight d5. That's why you couldn't retreat to h5, because knight takes d5 would win a pawn.
Yeah.
And if you take on h2, it actually gets even worse, because then king h1, your bishop is now getting trapped with g3, so you play bishop d6 back, and knight d5, and actually what just has a crushing attack with no material sacrificed even.
Devastating, yes.
So that's why black kind of has nothing better than to allow the bishop takes f6 threat. And a lot of people, I think, would castle long in preparation for that. But then white would probably not take on f6 and would instead focus on some sort of queenside initiative, like, for example, h3, bishop h5, rook c1, and trying to get b4, trying to get b5, c4, and all those ideas.
Yeah.
And Jan correctly saw that this could get dangerous for him, and he should castle short. Absolutely correct decision. He's not afraid of taking on f6.
Which happened in the game.
Decided, let's go for it. Bishop f6, of course not. It's not forced, but it's the most ambitious move. It also carries with it some risk. G takes f6. Black has a weakened pawn structure, but the bishop pair. And if we can imagine black's h5 bishop going to g6, that bishop would act as not only a protector of the king side, but also some sort of connector between the pawns, because it defends the pawns, and if it's ever captured, then black's pawns suddenly become compact again after h takes g6. So black is doing quite well strategically and can also use the g file to attack king h8, rook g8, and pressure down the g file. e5 at some moment is an option. e5 with the threat of e4 is very often an idea that white has to be careful for.
Yeah.
So here Ding played, I think, the natural move, knight to g3. His idea was that after knight g3, you will play h3 next, and you will force the trade of the bishop on f3. This is quite likely after knight g3.
Yeah.
But it also allows a lot of stuff. For example, black can play king h8, and after h3, black can take on f3. This would be very similar to the game. But he can also take on h3. G takes h3. Now bishop takes g3, take on g3, queen g3, king h1, rook g8, threatening mate, queen e2, queen takes h3, knight h2, white covers the mate, and these were the only moves for white to even survive the game. And then rook to g3, for example, black has 3 pawns for the piece and a lot of activity. Ooh. The computer gives that familiar evaluation of 0, 0, 0. I think that this was a valid approach for black. I understand why Jan didn't go for it, but I also think it's a completely unclear situation if he had gone for it.
Yeah.
So instead, Jan played f5, which is pretty clear. You want to blunt the bishop on d3, which was an attacking piece. h3 happened. Take on f3, queen f3. Now, a very interesting move, knight to e7. Why did he play knight to e7? He could have played king h8 first. I think he was worried about knight takes f5, e takes f5, queen takes f5. f6 protects against the mate threat on h7.
Only move.
Now white can either take on d5 or play rook e6.
Kind of
and
like rook
position.
e6.
You like rook e6?
Yeah, just to threaten rook takes e6, rook takes f6. It feels like I'm getting another piece involved into the attack, so it feels natural.
Yeah, the position is very unclear, and the computer says, a tiny advantage for black, but it doesn't really mean anything practically, because maybe I would prefer white here. Easily could imagine that white has an easier time of it. And I understand why Jan did not want to allow this, but both his move and this move are kind of equivalent in terms of evaluation. So it's not like there was a better choice, just knight e7, the move he played. Preventing knight takes f5 is a kind of stylistic choice, and I understand why he did it. So knight to h5 now. King to h8. Obviously, you need to get the king out of any g4, queen g4, knight to f6, these sorts of ideas. The king runs to safety and prepares rook g8.
Yeah.
Here, Ding played g4. It's an interesting moment. The computer says g4 is not very accurate, and instead you should probably play king h1, rook to g8, a move like queen to e3, which eyes h6, right?
Yes.
And in case of rook g6, now g4 is a much better version of some of the game positions. And if not rook g6, black has to make some move. For example, you can play knight g6, and after knight g6, white plays g3 to prevent knight f4. And this is very subtle play. It doesn't necessarily lead to an advantage for white. It just leads to a very complex position. If you're playing an engine, probably you get outplayed. If you're playing a human, impossible to predict what happens. Just a complete mess of a game, right?
Yeah.
But here, white keeps more control because the g pawn can go to g3 and it covers more dark squares.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, Ding played the move g4, and it's the move I expected, and we were discussing this with Robert quite a lot. But even though it's supernatural, it might be a little bit of a risky move. It's not a bad move. I'll just put that out there. It's basically keeps the game balanced. But
it definitely feels like this decision was a byproduct of the match situation. Just being down 1 point, you just feel like you have to open up the position. You feel like you have to get the lines towards the king opened up and try to go for the checkmate. At some point, you're going to have to take some risks, and it feels like Ding, in this particular game, he was ready to more or less go close to all out.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's a very direct approach, and I think it's sort of in Ding's style to go for the direct approach, but sometimes it's more difficult for your opponent when you go for the indirect approach. And here I think Jan quickly played rook g8, king to h1, and knight g6, very important move. Basically, the knight coming to h4 cannot be stopped, and the knight also can never be removed from that square.
Mm-hmm.
So this is defending against g takes f5, for the simple reason that after g takes f5, knight to h4 comes.
Yeah.
The queen move, let's say, queen moves to e3. And although rook g2 is tempting, there's a move which is just a cold shower for white. It's the move e takes f5. And once we saw this in the commentary, we were like, yeah, this is just disaster for white, because queen to h6 is not a mate. It looks like a mate, but after rook g6, you defend the mate, and that's a cold shower.
Yeah.
And if not for queen h6, you basically just lose, because knight g2 is a threat. And also f4 and rook g2, and the threats are a multitude.
Yeah.
So the correct move for Ding on move 19 was the move rook to g1. It's a very logical move, but I think that basically he saw that black can play bishop h2 here, and the rook, let's say, goes back, and then the bishop goes back. Let's say rook e1, bishop d6.
Mm-hmm.
And he probably thought he doesn't gain anything with this maneuver. And he doesn't want to repeat the position because it's bad for his match.
Exactly.
There was a
Must-win
very
situation.
Yeah, basically, maybe he thought it was like not a must-win necessarily, but I really should be winning this game. And so he didn't want to consider any sort of drawing lines.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, he's not better in the position. That's to start with. In fact, after rook g1, I would rather think that black could play for an advantage, although it turns out that knight to h4, queen e2, and all sorts of sharp lines are leading to basically to equality,
Mm-hmm.
or some sort of dynamic equality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If bishop h2 immediately on move 19, you also have this very funny move rook to g3. Robert was pointing out similar ideas like this, and if bishop g3, f g3,
Sorry, what?
you can't take
Excuse
on
me.
g4.
At what point?
Rook g1 19, bishop
Mm-hmm.
h2, and 20 rook g3.
Rook g3. Oh, just an exchange.
Bishop
sacrifice.
g3, f g3. Yeah, surprisingly, it's possible, and the computer says the position is balanced. The position is equal. You can't take on g4, so you lose a pawn, and white's knight on h5 remains very powerful. It's almost impossible, I think, to spot this idea.
Yeah.
But if somehow you do spot it, you might easily be attracted to the idea. And in a similar position, Robert did actually. He didn't spot it. He was trying to say why it was bad, like why you're losing your rook. And then he saw the valuation bar didn't move. And he was like, oh, actually, it's very interesting.
Maybe
so
we should try it. Yeah.
that shows how the evaluation bar can assist you.
It can
But,
definitely
yeah,
assist us during commentary. So we're the thermometer, as somebody I know puts it.
This would have been super interesting, or Ding could have repeated and made a quiet draw.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think that maybe Jan would not have repeated because Black can also play with knight h4 for an advantage potentially, or at least for a very tough fight. And who
No,
knows what
no, no,
happens?
no, no. Jan would have repeated at that point. Gift
Probably,
me the
but
draw. Gift me the draw.
yeah, we know that Jan is kind of playing practically and trying to keep the match situation under control. So maybe he would have taken the draw.
Yeah.
It's a good outcome for him, of course. In a vacuum, it's a good outcome.
Yeah.
So after knight g6, Ding played a mistake. Bishop to c2. Basically, the move does nothing in the position, and that's why it's a mistake. Even more so, sometimes it actually is better to have the bishop on d3, and we'll see some variations why that could be. The point of bishop c2 is to make room for the queen on d3. So, for example, knight to h4 happened in the game. He played queen to e3, and his idea was if f4, I can play queen to d3. I think that was basically his idea.
Yeah.
It turns out that basically queen d3 is not really a good square for the queen either. It doesn't especially do. It's not that effective.
Yeah.
Here Jan quickly played a brilliant move, rook to g6, even more accurate than f4 immediately, which is also a good move. Ding played rook to g1, one move too late. Now, by the way, bishop h2, rook g3 simply wins on the spot. So, little trap there.
Yeah. Don't fall for it. You're losing not one piece,
Jan
but
quickly
two
played
pieces,
f4.
of course.
Excellent move. Yeah, no, that would be a disaster. So Jan played f4. Excellent move. Ding played queen to d3. By the way, I just want to show like a beautiful line that I was discussing with Robert after f4.
Yes.
The queen goes to e2, rook to h6, g5. It looks like that rook is trapped, but f3, very important move. And now Robert suggested gh6, fe2, rook g7, with the threat of knight f6 and rook h7 checkmate. After rook g7, can you find the way to win for black?
F5?
No, f5 take, and you can play, for example, bishop d3. You survive.
You survive. Okay.
I'll say there's two moves to win, but only one of them.
Definitely
we
not
found.
the rook to g8. Rook to g8 would be mate in one. Not a good idea. Okay. Well, I have to defend the f6 square, so probably bishop to e5.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant move. Bishop e5, rook h7, king g8. And the point is not only that you defend f6, but also you stop rook g7. For example, if bishop to e7 instead of bishop e5, rook h7, king g8, rook g7. And if you go to h8, it's a draw, and if you go to f8, you lose to h7. So you need to cover the g7 square. So bishop e5, rook h7, king g8, take on e5, queen e5. And not only did you defend the mates, but also e1 queen is coming.
Yeah.
Black wins.
And my king runs away. King f8, king e7. And you don't have rook h8 whenever I go king f8.
Yeah, obviously none of this stuff is obvious, but it is absolutely correct that black wins like this.
Yeah.
So that's why after f4, we played queen to d3. Jan played an excellent move here. The point is, if rook to h6, there's actually a little trick, knight to f6, actually wins the game with the threat of g5. You can't take because of queen h7. Jan played all his moves are brilliant, and he was playing quickly too. He played queen 7 in 1 minute. The point of the move is the queen is coming to g5 and it blockades that pawn. It prepares rook to h6 slowly, and black will start to build up. Rook ad1 was played. White has no active ideas. Queen to g5. Before you play rook h6, you blockade that g pawn. It can't go forward. Queen
Absolutely
g5, rook
brilliant.
h6.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect play.
By the way, I just
So
saw
here-
a funny move. So, for example, if you go rook to h6 after rook to e1, you still have knight to f6, don't you? And queen takes f6,
Exactly.
g5.
Exactly, and white saves the game here. And I did actually spot this one in the commentary. And yeah, this saves the game completely for white.
Yeah, that's nice. So
That's
he
why
played
queen
queen
g5
g5.
was played. And after queen g5, here Ding had two options. Either he could wait and see how black improves the position, because white has no really good active ideas, or he could try to lash out. So first let's see if he tries to hold it together. For example, f3. Now rook h6. Now let's say he waits. Queen e2, rook g8, queen f2, putting the queen near the king. Now black can strike with the move f5.
Queen h2, you said, right?
f2.
Queen f2. Got it.
No, you can't put the queen on h2.
Yeah, knight takes f3. What am I talking about?
And after queen f2, black can wait, of course, all he wants, because white really has no ideas. But black can also strike f5. White waits, let's say bishop d3. F takes g4. If h takes g4, knight f3 followed by queen h4, rook g4, and so on. And if f takes g4, f3. And black starts to crash through here. It's not like instantly winning, but knight g2 is a threat, e5 is an idea. White is paralyzed. The knight on h4 is too powerful, the bishop on d6 too powerful. Everything. Both of the players evaluated the position as after queen g5 as winning for black, which is correct. And so they realized that basically if white waits, slowly you lose the game.
Yeah.
It might not be easy to break through, but slowly black will find a way.
Yeah.
That's why Ding struck c4, d takes c4. And he can't take back because of knight to f3, right?
Oh.
Queen to c3, and I kind of expected this. That he would play the c4, queen c3, because at least it attacks the rook on g6, it opens up d5 ideas, it's the start of some sort of counterplay, and in this sort of position, all you want is a little bit of freedom, a little bit of counter chances. You don't want to wait around forever, you just want to like, okay, I lash out, if I lose, I lose, but at least I'll go out swinging, right? Excellent move by Jan here, b5, defends c4, prepares b4 in many cases, and the point is that bishop takes g6, then h takes g6, traps knight on h5. During the commentary, I spotted a nice line, and I'll just say it here, it was d5.
After
on
h takes g6.
Well, let's say first, before, but you can also do it after. But let's say d5, e5, bishop g6, h g6.
Yes.
Knight g3, because now black doesn't have queen d5 check, right? That's why we play d5, e5.
Ooh,
Fg3, Fg3. And you might think, oh, I'm trying to beat the knight on h4, but here a very powerful move comes, b4. If queen c4, knight f3. If g takes h4, b takes c3, h g5, c takes b2, and black's pawns promote c3 and so on.
Yeah.
So that's why Ding did not do anything rash here. He played the move a4. And the way I described this move during the commentary was, black can play a6 here, and it didn't change anything, but at least white might as well play this move, and then you play a4, you wait for a6, and you gain a little bit of time on the clock to consider which move to make after a6.
Yeah.
The truth is that you have no moves. You are losing. You're down a pawn. You can't take the rook on g6. Nothing has changed with a4, a6. You can take on b5, take. Rook to a1 allows queen to d5 check. That doesn't help you. b3, for example, is met by rook to c8, among other moves. b takes c4, rook c4, and d4 pawn falls as well. After a6, the computer evaluates it as -4. Jan had 40 minutes on the clock.
-4. My goodness.
Yeah, I mean, it like oscillates a bit between -3.5, minus.
I remember I was
3.7.
watching the game live, and the engine that I was watching it with, which is like the app engine, was saying only -0.7 or 0.8. I was like, okay, there's still some chances. Obviously, visually, it just looks horrendous for white, but I did not expect to be so drastic, -4.
So, look, I'll say sometimes -4 doesn't mean much. Sometimes you can have -4 and it's too difficult to find the path through this sort of complications.
Yeah.
The reason why I think -4 is very accurate here is because I do not see white's next move. I didn't see it during the commentary. None of my co-commentators saw any ideas for white. When I search with an engine here, I similarly see no active ideas for white. And given that you are down material with a weak king and you have no active ideas and you're lower on time, I think this evaluation is not only objective but also practically completely accurate. I mean, you're down material. If you can't take on g6, what do you have going for you?
Yeah, absolutely nothing. Weak king, down material, the avalanche of pawns coming on the queen side, b4, b3, or c3, it just looks absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, it's hopeless.
Yeah.
And so Jan could have done this. Instead, he played a move, which is a good move. But it's a much less simple move. And so I would actually categorize this sort of as a practical mistake. He played it in 4 minutes, I'm seeing here. And Uh, yeah, I mean, when he played it, I was thinking like, oh, I saw the idea of b4. Like, okay, he played b4 here. I saw this as a possibility. Queen c4, and the only reason to play this move is to connect it with the move knight to f3. Otherwise, why would you give your pawn away? Knight to f3 is forking the two rooks.
Mm-hmm.
But I still thought that knight f3, queen c6 would lead to some sort of mess, and why would you ever allow this? Because you can just play a6. Why would you possibly play b4 when you could play a6 and you don't have to calculate anything?
Yeah.
And after queen c6, it's clear. A lot of things are threatened. The knight, the bishop, the rook. Here black wins with the move knight takes e1, queen takes a8. I'll also mention that bishop takes g6 would be very strong if not for rook to d8 here. Bishop to e4. The knight on e1 is trapped, but there's queen to h4, and black is winning because rook takes e1, queen takes h3, followed by f3, or queen takes g4, and so on.
Yes.
So after knight e1, white should take on a8, rook g8, queen to e4. Threatening mate on h7, by the way. Knight c2, queen c2, and I actually thought the reason that this was winning was because of the move queen d5. It turns out queen d5 is actually a huge mistake here because of king h2. It's shocking to me, but after queen d4, rook d1, let's say f3, king to h1, queen to e5, white survives by a miracle with rook takes e6, queen d6, knight f6. Okay. Just completely miraculous that white survives after queen d5, but somehow queen d5 spoils the win. Computer says that you are no longer winning there. After queen takes e2, black has a completely study-like and completely impossible, in my view, path to victory. Queen to h4, queen to d3. And I think most people would see queen f2, knight f6, and stop because it starts to look like a complete mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
After queen d3, move f5 is shockingly just winning. It doesn't look so obvious that black is winning here. It looks like f5 is almost a quiet move. After f5, queen to f3 is forced, otherwise f4 comes.
Yeah.
We trade everything on g4, and after h takes g4 in the endgame, black has one winning move, which is the move b3. With the idea of bishop to a3, and you pick up the b2 pawn. And although white can win the b3 pawn by going knight f6, knight d4, knight d2, black will pick up d4 and f2, end up 2 pawns up, and win the game. And this is unrealistic to find. But my criticism, my criticism is not with the move where he missed knight to f3. I mean, or where he didn't calculate knight to f3 in the end. My criticism is with the move b4. I mean, why would you? B4 is a good move, but why would you ever play b4 when you can play a6?
Yeah.
B4 is forcing you to play this whole knight f3 thing.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to play b4, and so he didn't realize that knight f3 was winning. I think it's very difficult to realize this. He played rook a to g8 after queen c4. This is actually not like it still keeps the advantage for black, but okay, you could have played a6. Why make your life difficult? I mean, why give your opponent a pawn? Ding played queen to c6 after rook a to g8. It's a losing move, but practically it's very very natural and very difficult to refute as well. The way to survive was bishop g6 first, then h6, and then queen c6. And okay, it's difficult to figure this out, and remains difficult for white. So we don't have to get into details there. Ding played queen c6. I don't think I can even be critical of this move because it's so.
And he played it fast.
Yeah, so
he played it in a minute and a half. So this was definitely his intention. Looking backwards, quite a few moves.
Okay, Ding was, I think, in the mode where he's like ready. He's accepted that he has a losing position. He's just going to kind of try to save it. And yeah, queen c6. Most of us would play this move. It's the only move I thought of after rook g8. And,
yeah.
Here Jan blundered. I think that we can call his move a full blunder because basically the move black is winning here and it's difficult. But the move he made also loses, and he made it within a minute 50 seconds when he had 40 minutes or 35 minutes on the clock. I think it's still crazy to do something like this.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely insane. Would you say that this move might actually be the blunder of the championship up to this point, given the match situation?
Well, no, let's watch until the end of the game.
Sure.
I mean, there's more to come in this game.
There's more to come. Okay. There's more to come.
Well, it is a losing move.
Yes.
The winning move is knight to f5. I don't think... Okay, so it's a difficult move for sure, but I don't think it's so difficult because your bishop was attacked. I'm defending it. Bishop takes f5, e takes f5, defends the bishop with rook g6, protecting the bishop, right?
Can I take with the pawn?
And if g takes f5, queen takes h5, it only takes like a second of calculation to see f g6, queen h3. So at least you can kind of quickly see that the knight can't be taken, and black is threatening queen h4. So at that point you realize that, yeah, it just kind of falls apart for white. It's not obvious, but it's findable. It's definitely findable. And if you had spent 10 minutes, I think you find this move.
Yeah.
I think for white it's more difficult to first see this, but once black is in the moment, I think you can find this move for sure.
Yeah. And he plays... What does he play?
Bishop b8.
Bishop to b8. All right.
And why is this move bad? It's not for the reason that Ding played. I think here Ding also messed up like a lot. He really dropped the ball because, okay, it's a chaotic position, but he had 30 minutes, and I don't think this is outside the realm of a 2800 player with 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Or he had 25 minutes, but okay. I think you spend 10 minutes, you can find this. Bishop takes g6. I mean, I was helped by the eval bar, which showed white's winning, and pretty quickly it was clear that bishop g6, hg6. To start with, this already looks like an interesting direction because if black ever takes on h5, white can take back, and it opens up a lot of potential, right? For like rook takes g8 after queen h5, and a lot of checks. And once you start seeing checks, you might get inspired to look for more. One way to look for more is knight g3, but then black can take, and queen d2. This saves the knight on h4. It's already a very important move. And here, it's some sort of mess. I think that
Queen to e4.
Dubov and Irina Krush were discussing this position: queen e4, f5, queen e3. Some sort of unclear endgame is in store.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
But okay, like you calculate bishop g6 because it takes a rook, and if you don't stop immediately, like let's say you extend your calculation beyond one move, then you start to consider knight g3, and then if you reject knight g3, then maybe you would consider the move after hg6 to play d5, and I don't think this is a difficult move. It really came to me very quickly because if you take on d5, knight f6 comes. If you take on h5, it's not even about gh5. It's just about d takes e6, because black's play on the queen side no longer exists, and that e pawn is just promoting. I mean, like e takes f7 is just promotion.
Yeah.
If you take it, then white wins basically with multiple ways, but it's already clear rook takes e6 is super dangerous, g takes h5, followed by rook g8 and a million checks. It turns out that those million checks are actually winning the game. So I don't know. I might be wrong on this one. I can't say for sure because I'm not playing over the board. But d5, I don't think it's a difficult move. I think this sequence is quite findable.
Yeah.
But I could be completely wrong.
He did not find it. He did not play the move
queen to b7.
Bishop to g6. Queen to b7. Okay.
Yeah, queen b7. He said that once he saw this idea of queen b7, bishop b4, he just liked it. And I suppose, I suppose it makes sense to move queen b7. You attack f7. He basically thought first I play queen b7, then I play bishop b4. I attack the f7 pawn.
Yeah.
Black again had like a very strong, probably winning move knight to f5, but if you didn't see it last move, you probably won't see this move.
Yeah.
It's the same idea. It's basically the same move. It's just a little bit less effective here for some details that white would have to figure out. Although the thing is, I don't understand why Jan didn't play at least the move f5 here. Because later on, he was trying to play f5. It's clear that you can't take because of queen takes g1. Right?
Yep.
So after f5, white has to find a very it's not an easy way to hold his position, which is obviously very shaky, right? Because there's always some f takes g4, and things are extremely shaky for white with the king in eternal danger. And white holds on with f3. It's a kind of an objectively probably okay position for white after f3. That's why knight f5 is stronger. But okay, if you don't find f5 or knight f5, still f5 looks like more logical to me than rook h6. But rook h6 is not a bad move. It's not giving white an advantage.
This was the move that he played. Nepo.
Rook to h6 he played. Bishop to e4, nice move. Played very quickly, 51 seconds. It stops knight to f3 ideas, and it threatens queen takes f7. Nice move for sure. And now I think we see why the rook on h6 is actually bad, because if you play knight to f5, now after g takes f5, queen takes h5, rook takes g8 now comes with check, and then king g8 and rook g1, followed by queen takes b8 or queen b8 immediately.
Mm-hmm.
The rook on g6 is actually very, very important there. It's much better on g6 than on h6.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be access to that. Likewise, f5 now, met by g takes f5, no queen g1, right?
Yeah.
So after bishop to e4, the right move here was f3, and I actually did say this to Robert. We went to a break, and I wanted to mention that there's a very interesting f3 move. And the first idea of f3 is if queen takes f7, black plays knight to g2, and suddenly the knight comes into the attack, and white should sacrifice the exchange here, and it's some sort of mess which the computer evaluates as 0, 0, 0.
Mm-hmm. Queen takes f3, knight takes e1, rook takes e1. Things of
exactly.
Nature. Yeah.
After f3, after bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3. My idea was actually to take on h5, gh5, queen f4, which does not work because of rook g3, and probably there's some other reason too. But it turns out that after bishop takes f3, black has a very surprising queen d2, which is winning. Not obvious, this move, but it threatens queen f2, queen d4, and actually white collapses here.
Okay.
F3 was very interesting. The move Jan played continued to free fall into that direction. I mean, f3, it's like at least the move comes to mind, right? You open the bishop up, queen f4 ideas, this and that.
But definitely not an easy move. Not an easy move to spot.
I mean, and he had 30.
You have 35 minutes. You have 35 minutes. You have to stop and think. It's such a complex position that you simply cannot make moves in a few seconds like he did.
Yeah, I don't really understand this narrative too much, where people are like, it's not an easy position. Obviously, it's not an easy position, but for a top player with 35 minutes, okay, at least like one of these decisions you take correctly, right? I mean, every decision he took wrong, so I don't think it's because he's not capable. I think it's because his calculation switched off. He was no longer calculating. Everything was kind of like intuitive. Blitz move b4, rook g8, bishop b8. Piece is attacked, I move it.
Yeah.
Move the rook to h6, it's attacked. Rook f8. He played rook f8 here. I'm defending the f7 pawn. It's attacked, I defend it. It's not calculation. It's just some sort of blitz intuition. Like, okay, he did actually think about this for 11 minutes, but at this point, he was no longer.
This was just a very, very bad decision. Very rash decision.
Yeah, he still got. I mean, it remains super complex because after queen takes b4, he played a good move, queen to d8. Well, I think you have to defend the rook, so there's no other way really to defend the rook. So queen d8.
Mm-hmm.
And here, Ding played queen to c3. I think it's a very normal move. It kind of might spoil the advantage, but to me it looks like the most normal move. There's also like d5, but then after d5, e5, it's hard to suggest the next move, and the answer is actually rook c1, which I think is super tough. And the point is, if ever f5, then queen to b7 comes with enormous threat on g7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The rook on c1 ends up like invading very often.
Yeah.
So, okay, Ding played queen c3.
Mm-hmm.
With the idea of d5, so Jan played a nice move. Actually, I think it's a difficult move. I think this was a difficult moment, but already he's like trying to equalize basically, and knight g6 actually probably does equalize. And so he found this knight g6. The point is d5, bishop to e5. Black covers the check like this, and then white can play queen d3, and a mess begins. f5 and bishop
Yeah.
to f3, queen h4.
Yeah.
I understand why Ding did not want to go for this. He made a move. I think it's a practical move. Bishop g2.
Mm-hmm.
Computer says rook e2. I don't. Yeah, rook e2 is a bit weird.
Yeah.
So bishop g2.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I mean rook e2 it would transpose to the game because Jan played queen h4, which is actually a dubious move. But again, it's a very non-concrete position, so very difficult to play this.
Yeah.
Queen
He did
h4,
bishop
and now
g2,
Ding
queen
played rook
h4.
e2. So basically, he's defending f2, and this could have transposed
Some sort of
with
a
rook e2
transposition.
immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's defending f2, and yeah, during the commentary we were saying white has defended everything and remains a pawn up with the threat of d5 at some moment, so black is in an absolutely desperate situation. Needs to find a way to some sort of counterplay. Unfortunately for black, counterplay does not easily exist here, and it would take a very, very tenacious defender or an engine to hold this position, especially under the circumstances. The computer says queen to g5, and then white can simply play b4, start pushing, and black can like move around knight e7 or something, maneuvering to d5 and so on. And the position remains very complex. So even though it's probably rather dubious for black, it's not easy to win this. But okay, I don't care what the evaluation is. I don't care what the move you make is. For example, I suggested the move a5 during the commentary.
Yeah.
The idea was if queen takes a5, then I get f5 or I get f3 and so on. And after a5, since white can't take and it stops b4, it looks very logical. And a move like this, I think, is a good practical chance. And after a5, the computer says that it's actually a bit of a dubious move because of move f3. But if you miss the move f3, I think we don't blame you. I mean, it's obviously a strange move to block your bishop in completely.
Yeah.
So this is the sort of thing I would expect. Like a5, white makes some move, I don't know which move, and then we see a tough fight, and whether white wins, black draws, or whatever, that's how you expect between top players a game like this to go, right?
Yeah.
Not perfect necessarily, but still, like, what happened next in this position, I can't even million years explain. Jan played the move f5. This move wins, if not for one move, and the move which was instantly spotted by everyone because it's the only move you even consider in this position. And after that move, black instantly resigns, and that's the game. Rook takes e6. If f takes g4, d5 with checkmate coming. Bishop to e5, rook takes e5.
That's basic,
you
though.
can't,
That
you can't stop
feels
d5.
basic.
Yeah, similarly, f3, d5, bishop to e5, rook e5, fg2, and literally every legal move here wins. Rook g2, king h2, king g2, and you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
The only way to explain f5 is that you missed rook e6.
Yeah.
But if not for rook e6, white actually loses because the attack becomes devastating.
Yeah. And at this point, I remember I saw Jan coming back to the board and start swearing in Russian. He's just like throwing the pen, probably has seen this move the second he played the move f5. Went to his restroom, to his resting place, so that he doesn't give any facial clues or any body language that, points to the fact that he missed rook takes e6. But of course, Ding plays it instantaneously. Yeah, he's like, okay, well, what are you doing, dude? f5, this is a shocker. Rook takes e6, game over. He understood it. Ding played rook takes e6, left the board. Jan comes, throws his pen, writes the move, throws his pen, and starts swearing in Russian. It was such a dejecting moment for the Russian.
Yeah, I mean, I can sympathize. Obviously, he lost control over everything.
Yeah.
And when you lose control, bad things can happen. But even when you lose control, I can't. F5 just would, like in a million years, I can't imagine this move. I mean, it's like so clear, right? Rook e6. I'm not. I actually can't explain this. I'm really trying to explain the move f5. What could be missed? Because obviously you can't miss rook takes e6.
Hmm.
Can you miss d5 after that? I don't think so. It's always been the idea of d5.
Yeah.
So what could possibly be missed? I don't get it. I wish they had asked him in the press conference. I watched the press conference. They did not ask him about this moment. They asked him about other moments in the game. To me, the other moments were critical. I think that b4 move was very critical. And I think this f5. But b4 I can explain.
Yeah.
f5 I can't explain.
Yeah. No, f5 is just one of those nerves moves. The finals of
nerves
the
I can't
World
explain.
Championship match. I mean, this is just complete blind spot that never happens to this type of players. And if it does, it's just a complete miracle and accident. No, it just never happens. Okay, so he missed it. Rook takes e6, and now it's desperation mode. He plays rook takes h5, g takes h5, queen h5, d5, very natural moves. And of course, Ding finishes it with d6. Natural, bishop to d5 is coming. Your king actually just simply guess checkmated. The bishop on the b8, h2 diagonal, it's over. Completely closed. No more counterplay. The game is over.
Yeah, rook takes h5 is obviously desperation, but after rook e6, it's pretty simple. d5 is coming. There's no way to stop it, and there's no defense against d5 and queen g7 mate.
Yeah.
Not a single move defends against it.
Wow.
And yeah, that's why he gave up the knight, so he doesn't get mated on g7. But at this point, he's just down tremendous amounts of material, and that's basically all there is to the position.
Yeah.
It's a very strange game. I mean, if you like up to b5, I would easily imagine a computer is playing this game.
Mm-hmm.
Up to move 25, and then from 25 until what was the final move number? 10 moves, right?
Yes.
Or a bit more than 10 moves.
38.
Okay, actually, I think like 10 moves
move.
because the final after rook e6, basically the game is over. So we can only those 10 moves. I would, without even trying to be harsh, I would say, pretty much an amateur was playing not high level at all. I don't want to say a rating, but it would probably be lower than you would expect me to say.
Yeah, no, just an incredible game, a psychological battle that simply Ding won in this case. Jan felt like even yesterday or a couple of days ago when he played with the white pieces and he had that opportunity to play the move queen to e2 and just play a long game with a very stable advantage. He did not take that. That was an initial sign that his nerves are starting to play a quite significant role in the outcome of this match. And we could see that pretty much be the mini explosion that you predicted a couple of days ago. This happened, and it was all because of the nerves, which strikes me as odd, mostly because Jan played a very decent game up to a certain point. And you mentioned it as well. He played some really good moves, some really tough decisions in a very short amount of time. So he was his usual self. He was playing like the Jan Nepomniachtchi that we know. But then, once the position got a bit too complicated, lost control, played this move b4. I think this is one of the moments that he was.
That's the thing. It wasn't
regretting.
Complicated. A6 is a simple move.
A6 is the easy way out. A6
I
is
even
the
got
easy
messages
way out.
from people like saying like, why don't you just defend the pawn?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
A4, A6 is kind of like these moves come as a duo, right? White plays A4, black plays A6, and then you ask white, okay, what was your idea with A4?
Yeah.
You opened the A file, but besides that, you have not actually changed the position. So if you were happy with the position before A4, A6,
but I'm not sure he was. I'm not sure he was. I think where he lost control, and he said this during the press conference, he was pinpointing to the moment where he took on c4. He played d takes c4. And he was saying that I should have played rook to c8. D takes c4 was just a bad move. In fact, d takes c4 was a very precise move. But from a psychological perspective, he did not feel comfortable with the ensuing complications.
Yeah,
He
I
said
mean, I can't
he
think.
should have left the center closed with rook to c8.
No, I saw he said rook c8 on move 24
Yeah,
with the idea c5 bishop b8.
yeah,
The computer says black is significantly better here, but obviously, um, and okay, maybe if he had done this, maybe it would have been a good practical choice. Although the computer says this is much less clear than
yeah,
taking the pawn.
yeah,
And I'll be honest, like you don't see him move after a6, and I saw Ding's expression. He was absolutely dejected before playing a4.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Jan is such a confident player. Why would he suddenly, in this position, when he is doing very well, why would he suddenly start losing confidence in his position? And he has so much time too. I mean, it's just a strange. I don't understand it. I mean, I can understand that, like, yeah, pressure is going to do strange things to people, but it was just a strange moment for the pressure to manifest itself in a negative way because, for example, it could have happened earlier in the game, right, or something. It could have happened in the opening. I don't know, but
Yeah, yeah, no.
he played so well and then so badly. It was such a um, weird change right in the middle of the game. Like so well and so precise, and then suddenly so imprecise. It's just like a complete shift. Right at. It was similar to Ding
Yeah,
in Game 7.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
That
but this was
Dinzo,
more
and he
extreme.
had the rook to d3, and he didn't capitalize on it. Yeah,
This was much more extreme, I would say, because here it lasted much longer, and that was like Ding made 2 mistakes. This was really like 7 mistakes in a row, pretty much. Really,
yeah.
really mistakes.
A very odd game, but in the end, the result is what stands and what counts. And Ding takes it, takes the full point home, equalizes the score, takes the match to its final championship rounds. And I saw quite an interesting statistic. This would be for the first time since 2004 that we're seeing all the games from a world championship match finishing, all 14 games. And I think it was 2004, which now that I think about it, where did I see that statistic? I think it was Chess 24 or something like that. But what about your match against Magnus? That would
I'm sorry. Wait, what was this statistic again?
So there was a statistic that was saying this is the first match since 2004 where we've seen all the games in classical being played out. All the
That's completely
scheduled
untrue.
classical games being played out. That is completely untrue. Now that I think about it, 2016,
Yeah.
Magnus versus Kariaki in 2018, you versus Magnus. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know what that account was smoking, but I'm going to find that tweet.
Yeah, I mean, it's like my match went the distance, and Sergei's match went the distance against Magnus,
Yeah,
and I think Topolov's match against Anand in 2010 went the distance.
yeah.
Um,
Was it Chess 24? I'm not sure.
and wait, Anand Gelfand went to tiebreaks, and Topolov Kramnik went to tiebreaks. I like most of them do. I don't. I mean, it's so
Okay,
inaccurate.
okay. No. Maybe I misrepresented. Whatever happens now, we're going to have 14 classical games in a World Championship match for the first time since Kramnik-Leko in 2004. Okay, so it was just about the specific number of games, which, okay, doesn't make too much sense to my eyes. But yes, I interpreted it wrong.
I mean, it sounds like a fascinating statistic, except for the fact that these matches were not
14 games, exactly.
14 games, so
Yeah.
there was no
Yeah.
way that it could be. It sounds like a great statistic, except there's like imagine if the next match is 16 games, and we're like, whatever
Yeah.
happens, this is the first match in history.
Exactly. That's what I thought. It was this amazing statistic, but now that while we were discussing it, it kind of, I understood that was complete nonsense.
I didn't realize that Kramnik-Leko was. I didn't remember that it was 14 games because I know the match pretty well. Like to basically sum up the match, Kramnik won in the first game with the black pieces. Then Leko beat him with white in a long bishop endgame, rook against bishop endgame. Then Leko won in this very, very famous game where Kramnik followed his preparation, and at the end of his preparation, it was dead lost for White.
Yeah.
So he basically lost from prep, which is kind of bizarre. Wouldn't happen these days, of course. And then in the final round, Kramnik has to beat Leko on demand to equalize the score. And to remind our viewers, equalizing the score in that match meant the end of the match, no playoff.
Yeah.
That means the champion, the world champion, keeps their title. The challenger needs to win with a plus score.
Yeah.
And Kramnik beat him in a Caro-Kann beautiful game on demand and stayed world champion in 2004. But yeah, we haven't had 14 game matches for quite a long time.
Yeah. Okay. Scratch that. Complete nonsense. All right, Fabi, 2 more games to go. A lot of excitement left. I am very excited for the championship rounds, and we will be here to call the action after the games finish. We're going to give you the recap, so stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe. Tell your friends about it. Tell your friends about the channel. Ring the bell so that you get the notification, and we will see you in game 13. Cheers, guys.